Chapter 499. In reality, Tang Xian knew deep down that if she wanted to establish her authority in front of the board of directors, she needed to produce results. If she couldn't resolve the Switzerland incident, then even if she was temporarily the acting CEO, she wouldn't be able to convince anyone, just like before. As for Tongning, she had already been in the entertainment industry for almost 10 years and knew nothing about business. So, she had no reason to worry that Tongning would achieve results before her. No matter what, she had been in the business world for many years. She wasn't someone that Tongning could compare to in a short period of time. Xia Yuling, I really need to thank you for your sacrifice. That's why I'm where I am now. Tang Xian thought to herself. 10 p.m., Xia Yuling's flight landed in Beijing on time. The people that Imo Ting sent to pick her up protected her well. Even when she directly walked out of the airport, no one noticed her. 40 minutes later, Xia Yuling stepped into Hyatt Regency. As soon as she saw Tongning, she immediately ran over and hugged her. Although she knew nothing would go wrong, she still felt a little scared. Mom, you are too brave. Tongning knew the entire kidnapping process and knew that Xia Yuling had taken a huge risk. Aren't I fine now? Xia Yuling removed her jacket and twirled it around in front of Tongning to show that she was fine. Don't you trust Imo Ting? Tongning took a deep breath and pulled Xia Yuling over to sit on the sofa. What's the situation with Tang Xian? She probably thinks that grandfather will announce her as the acting CEO tomorrow. Right now, she is racking her brains to think of a way to make a contribution and save the Switzerland case. Tongning replied calmly. Xia Yuling looked at Tongning's clear blue eyes. Her eyes seemed to have a life of its own. No one could hide anything from her eyes. She was too good at figuring out what others were thinking. In fact, most of the time, she simply saw through them without saying anything. In that case, what do you plan to do? Grandfather recommended a secretary to me. I'm thinking I'll temporarily let her handle things on my behalf. When the time comes, I'll make an appearance, Tongning replied carefully. As for the Switzerland case, I've already called them at least 40 times. Although they still haven't picked up, I will continue to try. At times like this, sincerity was the most important thing and perseverance was Tongning's forte. Are you confident? Although Xia Yuling believed in Tongning's capabilities, she had been in charge of Tang Core for so long, so she hoped nothing would go wrong. Mom, trust me. You can sleep here tonight. I've already prepared the guest room for you. Xia Yuling had experienced so much in just a couple of days, so she was obviously exhausted. So, she did not refute Tongning as she stood up and headed for the guest room. Tongning watched as Xia Yuling disappeared before she picked up her phone and continued to call. However, no one picked up. 2 hours later, due to her pregnancy, Tongning fell asleep on the sofa. As soon as Imo Ting stepped out of the study room, he saw Tongning leaning against the sofa. He immediately walked over and laid her down flat on the sofa. He then took the phone from her hand and continued to make a call. Xia Yuling keenly sensed the movement in the living room, but it was already 3 a.m. Xia Yuling was still worried, so she quietly got up and walked over to the living room. She found Imo Ting protecting Tongning as she slept, leaning against the sofa and fiddling with his phone. Xia Yuling froze for a moment, not daring to move. She simply felt that Tongning had earned the right to marry a man like this. It was her fortune. Although Tongning normally loved Imo Ting, compared to the things he did for her in secret, Xia Yuling felt her heart ache a little more for this son-in-law of hers. Imo Ting continued to make a few more calls. This time, the person on the other side of the phone picked up. Imo Ting then spoke to the person on the other side of the phone in fluent Italian. After about 10 minutes, he put down his phone and carried Tongning into the bedroom. Halfway through, Tongning woke up. In her daze, she saw the side of Imo Ting's face and mumbled, "Hubby, I'm on the phone. You sleep first. From now on, if you continue to work so late, you can forget about taking over Tang Core." Imo Ting warned, "I can choose not to take over Tang Core, but there are some things that I can't let go of." Hearing this, Imo Ting fell silent. He knew what Tongning was referring to. Not only did Tang Xian want to remove her uterus, she almost caused Tongning to lose her baby. If she didn't get back at her, she wouldn't be able to live in peace. "I will take whatever she wants. I will always be right behind you." Imo Ting assumed that Tongning would be like before in this drama. She wanted him to be a bystander. The Swiss have already picked up the phone. I've already asked Lu Che to make arrangements to send a representative over to meet with you. You always know what I'm thinking, but this is all I can do for you. Tongning opened her eyes and sat up. She then placed a kiss on Imo Ting's lips and whispered seductively beside his ear, "The baby wants to say hi to Daddy." Imo Ting's gaze darkened as he quickened his footsteps into the bedroom. He then gently placed Tongning on the bed and leaned over to kiss her. The doctor recommended a healthy position. I heard it all during the pregnancy test. Tongning's ears were slightly red as she spoke in a gentle voice. Tongning's ears were slightly red as she spoke in a gentle voice. Perhaps it was because she was pregnant, but her femininity was strong. So? Imo Ting teased. "I want you," Tongning said as she bit on the mole beside Imo Ting's ear. "As you wish." Tongning had no idea that, after getting pregnant, her skin had become more supple and her figure had become more perfect. She must not have known. Every time Imo Ting hugged her to rest, he couldn't help but want to get closer to her. He couldn't help but want to kiss every inch of her skin. The next morning, the family of 3 were having breakfast in the living room. Xia Yuling glanced at Imo Ting and began to lecture, "You should pay more attention to Imo Ting. Last night, he called you until 3 a.m. Tongning was a little surprised. Although she knew Imo Ting had done something like this, she had no idea it was so late. "It's fine. Let's eat," Imo Ting comforted. The Swiss representative will be arriving in the morning and Tangkor's meeting will be held in the afternoon. So, you can deal with the Swiss representative first and get your secretary to attend in your place. "I know," Tongning nodded. "But if something like this happens again, I hope you can carry me to bed. Nothing is more important than you." "Are you confident? The Swiss representative won't be easy to deal with." Tongning understood what Imo Ting was asking and knew he was trying to change the subject. So, she smiled and replied, "Your wife doesn't only know how to be a model and actress." Chapter 500. 10 a.m. Imo Ting arranged for the representatives from Switzerland to stay at a hotel near Hairue. Among them, there were 3 men and 2 women. It seemed they were quite impatient with the trip. Didn't we already avoid the collaboration with Tangkor? Now that the CEO is missing, there's no way we can continue working with them. There are plenty of big names waiting for us to work with. Why did boss insist on us coming to Beijing? One of the representatives asked as he sat on the sofa. Did you think you're the only one that doesn't understand? Even the air is filled with smog when we're in this horrible place. Endure it for a bit. We'll leave after meeting them. The representatives tidied themselves up and were led to the hotel's ballroom by a waiter. But when they arrived, neither the CEO nor Tongning were present at the large dining table. What's going on? Why isn't the representative from Tangkor here? I've never seen the host arrive later than the guests. Is this how Asians behave? The representatives from Switzerland were already frustrated from the trip to Beijing. On top of that, Tangkor's representative was nowhere to be seen. So, they all had unpleasant expressions on their faces. However, 5 minutes later, the doors to the banquet hall were finally pushed open. Tongning, dressed in a black trench coat and a pair of soft flats, stepped into the banquet hall. She greeted them in fluent Italian. "Nice to meet you all." Out of the 5 representatives, only 1 woman stood up and shook hands with Tongning. Meanwhile, the others leaned back and glared at Tongning. According to the attitude of Tangkor, "We will never consider working with you again. Let's not talk about the collaboration for now. Let's have a meal first." Tongning continued to smile as she gestured for the waiter to serve the dishes. The expressions on the representatives' faces did not change because of Tongning's words. But, as the waiter placed the dishes in front of them, a look of surprise appeared in their eyes. "How did you know that I like to eat lasagna? This is my favorite coffee biscuit." The representatives never expected that Tongning would know what they liked so well. In fact, they had never told anyone about this before. Seeing this, the representative of Switzerland finally revealed an interested smile. He crossed his arms and asked, "Can I ask you how you found out about our preferences? I've looked through everyone's information. Some of it is ready-made, while others are just my guesses." Tongning replied with a smile. "For example, the lady on your right doesn't seem to like drinking water. The woman was stunned for a moment before she nodded her head. That's right. How did you know? That's a secret. Why don't you all try it? We'll talk about it later. Tongning deliberately kept them in suspense to whet their appetites. Afterwards, because they were desperate to know Tongning's answer, they changed their impatient attitude and began to seriously enjoy the delicacies of their hometown. Tongning lowered her head and smiled. However, all she did was drink water the entire time. Half an hour later, the representatives finished their meals. At this time, the Swiss man called Jean put down his cutlery and said to Tongning, "Although we are grateful for your hospitality, we have already decided to give up on Tangkor's case. We simply came here today to give Hairue some face." "It's okay, I won't force you. But I have a few sets of data that you can use as a reference." After speaking, Tongning gestured for Song Yinshu to hand out some information to the representatives. This is Tangkor's sales for the last month of last year. The second set of information is the product that Tangkor is planning to promote in Europe. From what we know, Europeans and Americans have been infatuated with Asian herbs in recent years, but there has always been a gap in this market. Tangkor has always been a pioneer in the perfume industry and has always given preferential treatment to our partners. We have decided to focus on this gap and let you take over the market first. The representatives looked at the information in their hands and threw it to one side in disdain. There are a lot of big companies that have better offers than yours. Plus, Miss Tang, do you know anything about perfume? What about a year of unpaid endorsements? Tongning blinked and said, "As a model, I have quite a bit of fame in Europe." The representatives were a little surprised as they looked at Tongning carefully. A moment later, one of them suddenly realized, "Are you the famous Asian model, Tongning?" "I'm not exactly a model." "So, you are the new CEO of Tangkor?" The representative's attitude towards Tongning changed slightly. "Yes." "I thought you looked familiar." "So, you really are Tongning, the Asian legend that caused the Oriental trend in the US, and has also appeared in many high-class shows in Europe," one of the female representatives said with a hint of excitement. The female representative gradually found a trace of excitement in her tone. "You're really capable. We've all heard of your name." "Thank you," Tongning replied humbly. "But you still need to answer our question. Do you know anything about perfume?" Jean insisted. "I don't know anything about perfume, but I know how to give you the best possible return," Tongning replied straightforwardly. After hearing this, the representative finally laughed. "I like your honesty. Compared to those that claim to be professional, you are much cuter." "It's because I can read minds. That's why I know what you guys like. Would you believe me if I told you that?" Tongning asked as she placed her hands on the dining table and supported her chin with her hand. "In that case, what do you think I'm thinking about right now?" Jean asked as he looked at Tongning with interest. Tongning looked into Jean's eyes in seriousness and replied honestly, "I'm thinking about how to continue working with Tangkor after I get back." Jean looked at Tongning in surprise before clapping his hands in approval. "What about me? What about me?" Tongning looked at the young woman sitting opposite her and replied, "You're wondering if you can have another serving of biscuits? How did you know?" The woman was also surprised. "Because you just lowered your head and asked your colleague if she could have another serving." The woman was shocked by Tongning's thoughtfulness as she gave her a thumbs up. Because of this, Jean directly said to Tongning, "Let's work together." Tongning spread out her hands in confusion. "Miss Tang, didn't you show us your keen observation skills so you could conquer us? I admit, you've done it. You are a rare negotiation expert." Jean explained, "Your charisma has made me believe that this collaboration with Tangkor will be a pleasant one." Tongning smiled as she stretched out her hand and shook the woman's hand. She understood. After finding out that she was Mo Ting's wife and a famous model, the woman had already realized her value to Tangkor. She simply needed a way out. "I'm happy to receive your appreciation. In that case, please come to Tangkor's office this afternoon to discuss the contract. However, I have other work to do, so I'm afraid I won't be able to entertain you. I hope you can understand." "Don't mention it. It's okay. Please go ahead," Jean said politely. Of course, the woman had no idea that a good show was about to begin that afternoon. Chapter 501. Ningjia, are you really not going to appear this afternoon? Song Yinshu asked as she followed Tongning out of the hotel after lunch. If I reveal the answer now, I won't be able to see Tang Xian's expression afterwards. Tang Ning wrapped her coat tightly around herself. I never expected Ning Jie to be so good at negotiating. Song Yinshu expressed her admiration towards Tang Ning. Don't say anything else. Take me home and go take care of Luo Xing. How's his mood lately? Tang Ning asked as she boarded the car. Compared to before, he's gotten better at hiding, Song Yinshu replied. But a lot of people have been asking him to sing, and his new album is about to be released. As long as he gets busy, he won't have much time to think about the past. Yinshu, although Jingxian hasn't forgotten about that woman, he is the same as me. We are people that will never turn back. His future depends on you, Song Yinshu reminded. Now that my stomach is big, it's inconvenient for me to go anywhere, and I will be appearing in front of the public less and less often. So, you need to take good care of Luo Xing, I understand. Song Yinshu looked at Tang Ning and nodded her head in seriousness. But I heard that the lost relative is about to be released. Really? Time has passed so quickly. Tang Ning was silent for a moment as she thought back to all the details of filming the film. You're going to make a big hit again. Tang Ning stretched out her hand and rubbed her stomach. She was grateful for her perseverance and hard work. Let's resolve the matter with Tang Kor first. Song Yinshu smiled and nodded her head. Okay. It wasn't hard to tell from the look in her eyes that she admired Tang Ning. This admiration was completely different to the admiration she had for a man. However, Tang Ning did not return home. Instead, she went straight to Hai Rue and entered Imo Ting's office. The couple looked at each other as Imo Ting immediately stood up from his chair and wrapped his arm around Tang Ning's waist. I've heard about you. You're a master negotiator. I didn't embarrass you, did I? How could you possibly embarrass me? Imo Ting placed his chin on top of Tang Ning's head and sighed. I'm sure, as long as you are willing, managing Hai Rue will be a piece of cake for you. The couple were familiar with each other's two-faced nature. So, did they need to elaborate further? That afternoon, before another board meeting, Tang Xian received a phone call from Assistant Long. The reason was that Elder Tang had invited her to attend the meeting. This made it clear to Tang Xian that Elder Tang intended to hand over Tang Kor to her again. My child, I'm counting on you. You have to work hard for me, Tang Xian said excitedly as she rubbed her belly. But, just as Tang Xian was about to leave for the meeting, her secretary suddenly knocked on the door and entered. Miss Tang, someone from Switzerland has arrived. They say they are here to discuss a contract. Really? Are you sure you didn't hear wrongly? Tang Xian stood up from her chair as her smile grew brighter. That's right. They came here directly to sign the contract. Let's go and meet someone. Tang Xian had no idea that Jean and the others had been convinced by Tang Ning. She simply treated it as luck, the good fortune she deserved after enduring for so long. Of course, Jean and the others didn't know Tang Xian's identity. They simply thought she was Tang Ning's secretary, so they chatted happily. In the end, in order to gain everyone's trust, Tang Xian requested for Jean and the others to appear at the board meeting. Although Jean felt it was a little strange, he still nodded his head. Afterwards, Jean instructed his subordinate to contact Tang Ning. Only then did Tang Ning explain the situation to the others. Jean understood Tang Ning's situation and went to look for Tang Ning's new secretary. Tang Ning's new secretary was called Xiao Yuxing. He was a rare talent. He had already spoken to Tang Ning verbally, so when he saw Jean and the others, he welcomed them politely. How did Miss Tang arrange it? We are happy to help her with anything, Jean said to Xiao Yuxing. Actually, it's nothing much. When the time comes for the board meeting, just tell them the truth and tell them that you reached an agreement through our new CEO. Xiao Yuxing replied humbly. In that case, Miss Tang Ning doesn't plan to make an appearance? It's not time yet, Xiao Yuxing laughed. Jean thought for a moment and decided to do Tang Ning a favor. I admire Miss Tang Ning's charisma. We will definitely help you. After the discussion, it wasn't long before Tang Kor's board meeting began. Now that all the shareholders had arrived, Assistant Long took Elder Tang's place and arrived at the meeting. Assistant Long glanced at Tang Xian, but it only lasted for a second before he looked away. Not long after, Assistant Long pulled out his phone and Elder Tang's voice could be heard. Due to my health, it's not convenient for me to attend. So, Assistant Long will be announcing an important decision on my behalf. Every word he says will be legally binding, so I hope everyone will respect his decision. The shareholders didn't care who attended the meeting. The main issue was who would be taking over Tangkor. That's enough. Stop keeping us in suspense. As shareholders, we simply want a guarantee. Let's make the announcement. Before that, I have some good news to announce. To make things more stable, Tang Xian immediately stood up and stopped Assistant Long from speaking. I've already secured the case in Switzerland, and their representative is still waiting in the VIP room outside. Is this true? The shareholders immediately became excited. If this is true, then I can only say that I have a whole new level of respect for the big miss. I can't help but be impressed that she's done so quickly. Look at the big Mississippi. Is this something that actors can do? The board of directors began to compliment Tang Xian one after another, and she happily accepted their compliments. However, Assistant Long glanced at her and asked, "Was the big miss the Swiss case? The big miss was the one that settled it? Are you sure?" Assistant Long, what do you mean by that? Nothing. Assistant Long immediately regained her composure. I know, Assistant Long, you've always been biased against me and don't believe in my abilities. But it doesn't matter. I can invite him in. When the time comes, you will know whether I'm telling the truth or not. Tang Xian scoffed proudly. Okay, since that's the case, then let them in. After all, they are our business partners. Since they have arrived, we should welcome them warmly. Assistant Long smiled. I'll go invite them right now. Personally. After speaking, Tang Xian stood up and walked out of the meeting room. The shareholders waited patiently. A moment later, Tang Xian returned to the meeting room with Jean and the others. Yesterday, we had a pleasant lunch together, and she used her charisma to convince me. So, we decided to continue our collaboration with Tangkor. She said she couldn't attend today, so we headed straight to Tangkor. Plus, we thought you were her secretary. After hearing this, Tang Xian's face turned red and white in an extremely awkward manner. Secretary. So, he only thought of her as his secretary. How is this possible? The board members who supported Tang Xian were speechless. They felt as if they had been slapped in the face twice. He really thought Tang Xian could achieve something great. Who would have thought that she would actually throw him in front of all the directors? Tangkor is a century-old perfume family. Does the management only rely on luck to run the company? Assistant Long asked in a stern voice. Considering that the big miss is still around and shouldn't be overworked, the chairman has already arranged for the most suitable candidate. I'm sure everyone has seen her capabilities. She has efficiently and timely recovered everyone's losses. I'm sure everyone has no objections to this new CEO, right? Let's not talk about whether or not anyone has any objections. You should at least tell us who she is. In any case, it's not the big miss. Assistant Long laughed. He then handed the rest of the work to Qiao Yuxing and led Jean and the others to the VIP room to get some rest. Tang Xian had been humiliated. To be exact, she was feeling ashamed. Her face was so red that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. The acting CEO has a special identity, so she won't be meeting with everyone for a while. However, she has prepared a detailed plan for the future development of Tangkor. Please take a look at it first. She hasn't even appeared yet. How can we trust her? Please take a look first, Qiao Yuxing explained patiently. The directors unwillingly opened up the document. At first, their expressions were filled with disdain, like they didn't have much confidence in this new CEO. But, from the second page onwards, as they looked at the profit potential in detail, they were left speechless. I just want to ask, are these projects going to be launched soon? Haven't you all seen it? These projects are already in the early stages. In that case, I have no objections. Although I don't know who she is, as long as I can make more money, I don't care about anything else. One of the directors immediately stepped forward. As for the big miss, you should just focus on your pregnancy. Think back to when you were in office. Not only did you have a long-term vision and detailed plans, you couldn't even come up with a small project. This is why I would rather support Tongning than the big Mississippi. Although Tongning isn't the one getting elected, it's better than being dragged down by someone else. Didn't the big miss act like she didn't care about the position at first? In the end, she finally revealed her foxtail. Since the new CEO has already resolved Tangkor's crisis, then we have nothing else to say. Everything will be done according to the chairman's wishes. This time, the people that supported Tongning spoke with confidence. Especially when they saw Tang Xian's face, they were more excited than if they had won the lottery. The chairman isn't blind. He can see through people's hearts. I want to see grandfather. Who is the acting CEO? Tang Xian asked as she grabbed onto Qiao Yusheng. The chairman has already gone to Switzerland. His family is in trouble. Only the big miss is still trying to fight for power. Qiao Yusheng replied straightforwardly. I am only responsible for the day-to-day work of the acting CEO. If the big miss wants to see the chairman, you can go to Switzerland. After speaking, Qiao Yusheng turned and left with the document in his hands. The directors also followed suit, leaving behind Tang Xian and a few other shareholders. Big miss, I think you should stop wasting your efforts. After all, the other party is very powerful. That's right, Big Mississippi. Although the chairman has put you in a difficult position, I must say that his decisions have always been right. In the end, a 30-something-year-old director walked in. Seeing that Tang Xian was about to burst into tears, he immediately leaned over and whispered into her ear, If you have time, come to my house. I can help you. Tang Xian's face turned red as she turned to the side. He knew that she was in a difficult position, yet he still brought it up. Wasn't he being sarcastic? You don't need to worry about her. Right now, your task is to prepare for the concert. By the way, I heard that Xia Jingyi's case will be heard soon. I have to congratulate her for that. After Tang Jingxian finished speaking, there was no reply from behind him for quite some time. By the time Tang Jingxian turned around out of curiosity, he found Song Yinshu leaning against the wall with her hand on her forehead, moaning in pain. What happened? Perhaps I've been too tired lately, Song Yinshu replied. I'll be fine after a nap at home. Do you really think of yourself as King Kong? My sister is my sister. Do you think she's willing to risk her life for the sake of work? She loves herself more than anyone. If you want to be like her, you need to learn how to take care of yourself. After speaking, Tang Jingxian lifted Song Yinshu in his arms and placed her on his bed. You can sleep here. If something happens, I can take care of you. But there are no buts. Yinshu, during my most difficult times, you were by my side. I was willing to give up everything else. So, I will never abandon you. Song Yinshu was a little surprised. She did not say another word as she closed her eyes peacefully. Not long after, she fell asleep. Tang Jingxian watched as Song Yinshu slept soundly. He suddenly wondered why this woman was so stubborn and unwilling to admit defeat. Not only was she stubborn, she was always thinking of others. Idiot. Meanwhile, after Tang Xian's defeat, she had become the laughingstock of Tangkor. Wherever she went, people would point fingers at her. I thought the big miss would change after being kicked out of the Tang family. Who would have thought that she would still be so greedy for power? The collaboration in Switzerland this time is enough to make the entire company laugh at us for an entire year. Haha, this is so funny. I thought they would deliver themselves to us. Why is the big miss becoming more and more of an idiot? Has she gone crazy from being pregnant? After hearing these rumors, Tang Xian clenched her fists. She had never been humiliated like this. She had never been laughed at by the people of Tangkor. Could it be that Grandpa's concern for her was fake? Afterwards, Tang Xian continued to call Elder Tang. To her surprise, his phone was turned on and he picked up. Grandfather. Oh, Xiao Xian, why are you looking for grandfather? Elder Tang asked even though he already knew the answer. Why did you hand over control of Tangkor to someone else? Haven't I worked hard enough? Tang Xian asked straightforwardly. I know I've hurt you in the past, but I've turned over a new leaf. Why won't you give me a chance? Turned over a new leaf? Didn't she become even worse? Xiao Xian, grandfather is currently in Switzerland, so he can't hear what you're saying. If there's anything you want to say, wait until I'm back. Grandfather. Tang Xian had no one to complain to, so she called the Zhong family home again. Mom, the board of directors, I didn't become the acting. What's wrong with you?
Mother Zhong asked angrily.
I've done so much for you and paved such a long path for you. How could I still fail? I was hoping that you would fork out some money to help the Zhong family. What's wrong with the Zhong family? Tang Xian immediately sensed that Mother Zhong's words had a hidden meaning. It's because of the previous problem. You and my husband are both being investigated. I don't know if we can get past this time. Everything was fine, yet we were suddenly found to be in possession of illegal drugs. Perhaps Mother Zhong would never find out who was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Just like how she thought no one knew that she had instigated Tang Xian to remove Tang Ning's uterus. Could they get past this time? There was no need to think too much about it. Of course, they couldn't get past this time. Who told them to hurt Mo Ting's wife and child? In that case, what should I do now? Xiao Xian, the Zhong family is currently in a crisis. Think of a way to get some money from the Tang family, Mother Zhong suddenly requested. Mother Zhong suddenly made a request. Mom promises that after this matter is over, Mom will fulfill your wish. Mom, I don't have access to the finance department. Tang Xian rejected carefully. Then let's die together. Mother Zhong yelled viciously. Chapter 504. If you want to die, then go ahead and die. Why should I die? Tang Xian hung up the phone with reddened eyes. After lowering her head and calming herself down, she held back her embarrassment and walked out of the office. But, as long as Tang Ning wasn't the first to sit in that position, she wasn't considered to have lost. There was always a way. Soon, Tang Cor's annual product launch would be held. This was her chance. She refused to believe that she wouldn't be able to sit in the highest position in Tang Cor. Over the past few days, Hai Rue had been focusing on promoting WH. Although they had previously released a 10-second trailer, this time, they released 3 different versions of the film. In fact, each version was 30 seconds long. This time, whether it was the cast or the theme of the film, it was highly anticipated by the audience. With her experience in Stupid and her stunning acting, she had already won over the expectations that film fans had for an actress. She was someone that could be trusted. I've already watched the trailer for WH more than 20 times. Let's hurry and release the film. Watching Tang Ning and Bai Chendong act in this film is like watching a European or American blockbuster. The two of them never act with the burden of being idols. They do whatever they want. It's so comforting. I must go to the cinema and watch this film 3 times. I hope WH can become a benchmark for our domestic disaster films. I also hope Tang Ning can return to film as soon as possible. We miss you. The scene of Tang Ning retreating from filming was still fresh in everyone's mind. At the same time, the release of WH also caused a lot of fans to become excited. Have the people that slandered Tang Ning apologized? How dare they force such a good actress to leave? They are all idiots that push others aside when they can't do it themselves. Disgusting. Ever since Tang Ning announced her retreat from filming, I completely hated the person on that list. I would rather like someone than a bunch of disgusting people. In the end, WH was released on December 6th. It wasn't uncommon for a film to become popular before its release. For example, a lot of Hollywood blockbusters found it hard to get a ticket before their release. But the popularity of WH did not pale in comparison to a European or American blockbuster. Under these circumstances, the screening schedule was no longer as strict as it was with Stupid. After all, even without Tang Ning, Bai Chendong was still a guarantee of the box office. It was because of this situation that Tang Xian was under the illusion that Tang Ning was still focused on the entertainment industry and had no intention of stealing Tang Cor. However, the more famous Tang Ning became, the more jealous she became. They were both part of the Tang family, so why did Tang Ning deserve to be doted on? This only made her heart more ruthless. During this time, Tang Xian once again received an invitation from the director. At first, she thought the other party was deliberately mocking and teasing her. But when the other party directly asked if she wanted to win, Tang Xian's heart followed these few words and fell into the abyss of desire. Keep the appointment. 3 p.m., Hai Rue CEO's office. Mo Ting was handling some work as Lu Che stood beside him and reported, "News of the Zhong family being investigated has been released. I don't think they will survive past this month." I want to see the Zhong family go bankrupt, Immerse said coldly. Don't worry, President. However, if the Zhong family goes bankrupt, the Tang family may be implicated as well. Do you think my wife is easy to deal with? Lu Che looked into Immerse's eyes and chuckled. That's right, with Tongning around. Was there anything she couldn't solve? Above all, Tongning had their president backing her up. The couple were both ruthless characters that no one dared to offend. In that case, regarding the Fei Tian Awards, should I nominate the madam for Best Supporting Actress in Stupid or Best Newcomer in WH? Do you need to ask me a question like this? Immerse asked as he lifted his head. I understand. Immerse had always placed Tongning first. So, when he applied for the Fei Tian Awards, he was obviously aiming for the Best Newcomer award. Although Tongning's performance in Stupid was quite impressive, she was still a supporting character. So, even if Stupid meant a lot to her, Immerse hoped that the awards he sent to Tongning would be the best. That night, the cold wind blew. Immerse returned home to find Tongning sitting in the study room with her head in her hands, deep in thought. As soon as she saw Immerse, a look of surprise appeared in Tongning's eyes. It was this look of reliance that made Immerse feel extremely happy. Even if he had to sacrifice his life for the Tongning in front of him, he was willing to do so. You're finally back. Did you encounter a problem? Immerse immediately ran over and hugged her. Tangkor's product launch requires VIPs to be the main guests. But Tangkor has been around for so many years and has so many VIPs, I don't have a choice. Are you afraid of offending someone? Immerse chuckled as he looked at the list of names in his hands. Honey, don't be afraid of anything. Let's rank them according to how much they spend and only choose the top 20. Not only will they be able to attend the product launch, they will also be the first to enjoy the perfume. That way, the rest of the VIPs will work hard to create wealth for us in order to be invited to next year's product launch. Tongning smiled. Once pregnant, I must be stupid for 3 years. Business has never been easy. No matter how capable you are, you've never fought in the business world before. So, when it comes to problems, you can only see the surface, Immerse comforted. Don't be afraid. I'm here. Let's call it a day. Let's get some rest, okay? Tongning wrapped her arms around Immerse's neck and nodded. I only listen to you. Immerse smiled gently as he carried Tongning to the bedroom. Before he left, he asked again, Are you planning to reveal your identity at the product launch? No rush. The time is not right yet. I like to see Tang Xian get her way. I haven't had my fill yet. Late at night, Tang Xian's figure appeared in the hallway of a certain hotel. She covered herself up tightly and carefully entered room 3436 of the hotel. You're here. The man held a glass of red wine in his hand. As soon as he saw Tang Xian, he turned around and looked at her. I knew you would come to my side sooner or later. Can you really help me? Tang Xian stood cautiously by the door. What's so difficult about it? The man let out a gentle laugh and put down his wine glass. He then walked over to Tang Xian and pulled her into his embrace. Right now, the Zhong family is in a precarious situation. You need to immediately sever all ties with the Zhong family. You can't keep the child in your stomach either. Chapter 505. Why should I trust you? Tang Xian didn't dare to take the risk. This man was so dangerous that he had already threatened her family. Come, Xiao Xian, tell me. Do you really not know that you are currently in the middle of a conspiracy? The Zhong family is currently on the verge of bankruptcy. According to the Zhong family's personality, when you take over Tangkor, do you think you will have a good life? What's more? The man pursed his lips into a smile that was both elegant and deep. Behind his glasses, his eyes were extremely charming. The Tang family doesn't care about you at all. Why are you helping me? This was what Tang Xian was most curious about, because I like to win. After speaking, the man put down his wine glass and introduced himself in seriousness. My name is Lin Xiaoyuan and I work in the jewelry industry. My wife passed away a year ago and I have a 3-year-old son. Do you want to know more about me? I just joined the board of directors of Tangkor. For some reason, Tang Xian felt a deep sense of fear towards this man. But, She couldn't help but be attracted by the dangerous aura he exuded because he seemed unfathomable. At the same time, she understood that the reason why Tongning was where she was today was because she had Ting supporting her. To have a capable man, wasn't that more important than anything else? Listen to me. You need to break away from the Zhong family right now. As for the child, you can use it to deal with Tongning. Tang Xian froze as she stared straight at the man. However, the man simply smiled. Tang Xian couldn't help but take a few steps back. She originally wanted to escape, but the man's charisma made it difficult for her to take a single step. It was like there was a voice in her heart telling her to agree. As long as she agreed, there was still hope. Xiao Xian. From this moment onwards, Tang Xian forgot about the devil's contract. When her ambition was driven by someone else, the evil within her made her lose her mind. News of both the Zhong family's representatives being investigated had already spread throughout Beijing. As the news spread like wildfire, it meant that the Zhong family was about to declare bankruptcy. In order to rescue her husband and son, Mother Zhong tried everything she could think of. But, this time, the higher-ups were extremely strict and didn't give her any room to maneuver. The attacks came fast and fierce, and she had already spent quite a bit of the Zhong family's savings. In the end, she decided to use Tang Core and couldn't wait to meet with Tang Xian. Of course, Tang Xian showed up. However, her expression was different from before. Xiao Xian, now is the time for you to show your loyalty. Our Zhong family has married you, so you must be of some use. Hurry up and think of a way to get some money. I need it urgently. Tang Xian crossed her arms and looked at Mother Zhong. She then let out a gentle laugh. It's not that I don't want to help, it's that I don't have the ability. Mom, as you can see, I haven't received any benefits from the Tang family. You still have shares in Tang Core. Mom, what are you talking about? Aren't we a family? At this time, Mother Zhong played the family card. While you were being despised by everyone, the Zhong family still accepted you. How can you not feel grateful at all? The Zhong family did not abandon me. That was because they were afraid of being called heartless. Don't you know how many mistresses your son has found on the outside? Tang Xian scoffed. There's no need to pretend to be kind. At a time like this, let's be honest. After speaking, Tang Xian pulled out a stack of photos from her handbag and handed them to Mother Zhong. What do you mean? What I mean is simple. Get your son to sign the divorce papers, and we will part ways from now on. Otherwise, if your son cheats on me while I'm pregnant, you know what the consequences will be, Tang Xian said coldly. A long time ago, she had wanted to say this to Mother Zhong and throw the photos in her face. Now that she could finally do it, her heart was filled with joy. Mother Zhong's expression was ugly. She never expected that Tang Xian would have this trick up her sleeve. Tang Xian actually had a way out. In fact, she did it while the entire family was in trouble. Tang Xian, you've really surprised me. Mother Zhong sneered as she held onto the photos. Good, very good. You want a divorce, right? I'll fulfill your wish, you shameless slut. After speaking, Mother Zhong was about to stand up from her seat, but Tang Xian beat her to it. After being humiliated by you in the past, it's time to return the favor. I hope the Zhong family closes down soon. Don't think that just because you've gotten rid of us, you can win against Tongning. To be honest, compared to Tongning, you are like mud to the clouds. The only reason Tongning has gotten to where she is today is because her scheming methods are many times better than yours. Just wait and see. Your time of misery will come. Tang Xian scoffed as she left the cafe and boarded the car that Lin Xiaoyuan had sent to pick her up. Mother Zhong was naturally furious. She had lived her entire life, yet she was being humiliated by a slut like Tang Xian. But she still had to save Tongning. However, just as Mother Zhong was about to leave the cafe, a man carrying a briefcase suddenly approached her and said, "Hello, Mrs. Zhong. I don't know you, but I do know you. I can help Zhong Core." The young man smiled as he sat down in front of Mother Zhong. Let's have a chat. Perhaps I can bring you some good news. There is no good person in this world. If you leave, you may miss your only chance to save your husband and son. The man was not in a rush as he held Mother Zhong back. Mother Zhong froze for a moment before she sat back down. I'll buy your shares in Zhong Enterprises in exchange for the freedom of your husband and son. You have to know that not everyone who pays has the ability to let your son and husband see the light of day again. Mother Zhong lowered her head and thought for a moment before asking, So, I only need to sell my shares? Of course, the young man smiled as he shrugged. The contract can state this clearly. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, I agree. When will it be done? You will definitely see your husband and son within 3 days. The young man put away his documents and stood up. But, just as he was about to leave, Mother Zhong held him back. I have one last question. How do you know so much about the Zhong family? I'm not afraid to tell you the truth, Mrs. Zhong. Did you offend someone recently that you don't even know about? The young man turned around and smiled. Mother Zhong was stunned, but she did not say a word. She had no idea. It seems, I need to remind you. Who did you suggest to remove your uterus? Hearing this, Mother Zhong's eyes widened in shock. In that case, everything that Tang Xian has done, President Mo is well aware of it. But I'm sure you wouldn't remind Tang Xian, right? Chapter 506. She finally heard this name. President Mo? It wasn't anyone else. It was Tang Ning's husband, the CEO of Hairue, Mo Ting. Thinking of this, Mother Zhong felt a chill down her spine. It turned out her flawless plan had already been seen through by Mo Ting. Yet, the Zhong family had been played by Mo Ting without any ability to retaliate. If she had known Mo Ting was this scary, she would not have provoked Tang Ning. After all, so much time had passed since Tang Ning had been framed. Yet, the Zhong family were slowly falling into Mo Ting's trap. Although Mo Ting was known to dote on his wife ever since he got together with Tang Ning, it did not change his ruthless nature. His gentleness, from start to finish, only revolved around Tang Ning. Mrs. Zhong, let me remind you, if the Zhong family still want to do something, I definitely won't do it again. Mother Zhong immediately waved her hands. After being warned by Mo Ting, how could she dare to provoke Tang Ning again? The person our president loves the most in this world is the madam. Yet, someone had to hurt the madam. Our president has always said that if they want to cause trouble for him, he will deal with them at any time. But if they want to cause trouble for the madam, I'm sorry, he will make sure they die a horrible death. After speaking, the young man grabbed his briefcase and left, leaving Mother Zhong in disbelief. Oh God! Only now did she realize how scary Mo Ting was. Most importantly, Tang Xian still wanted to fight with Tang Ning. If Mo Ting already knew about the incident at the hospital, then Tang Xian must have been under his control. Did she still think she could climb to the top of Tang Core? Tang Xian, let's wait and see what happens to her. After the matter with the Zhong family was settled, Mo Ting simply listened to the results. After confirming that everything was going smoothly, he simply said one thing to the young lawyer. After we get our hands on the shares, sell them to the Zhong family's competitor. He was sure this kind of torture would drive the Zhong family crazy. For the sake of him and Tang Ning's baby, he didn't kill them. Mo Ting believed he had left some leeway and a bottom line. He left some leeway. If the Zhong family found out that Mo Ting left some leeway, would they cry or laugh to death? A few days passed, but there was still no news of Xia Yuling. Under the leadership of the acting CEO, Tang Core remained stable. At this time, Elder Tang returned from Switzerland empty-handed. Seeing the old man enter the house, Tang Xian took the opportunity to kneel in front of him with tears in her eyes. Xiao Xian, what are you doing? Elder Tang hurriedly knelt down and asked, Grandfather, at this shareholders' meeting, I've overstepped my boundaries again. It's not that I wanted to become the acting CEO. I was simply worried about Tang Core's predicament. Grandfather, please don't blame me. Tang Xian apologized sincerely. I know you're worried about Tang Core, but you can't hurt my great-grandson. Elder Tang helped Tang Xian up. Someone will take care of Tang Core. You just need to focus on getting better. Don't worry about anything else. But I've embarrassed myself this time. Tang Xian pointed at the joke everyone in the company had towards her. The old man shook his head and waved his hand. It's nothing. Don't take it to heart. But Grandpa, am I really? So useless? Don't tell me I can't be of any use to Tang Core? Elder Tang immediately tried to figure out the meaning behind Tang Xian's words. All of a sudden, he couldn't figure out what she was planning. Grandfather, let me go to the planning department to study. Go to the planning department? Elder Tang thought for a moment. In the end, he used Tang Xian's pregnancy as an excuse to reject her suggestion. After you give birth, you can go to any department you want. But for now, you better stay at home and take care of your baby. Originally, Elder Tang thought that Tang Xian would continue to argue. But, to his surprise, she actually nodded her head. Okay, since grandfather thinks I should rest, then I will focus on taking care of myself and the baby. Elder Tang looked at Tang Xian and did not say another word. He knew that underneath Tang Xian's innocent appearance was a heart as vicious as a snake's. By the way, grandfather, I'm getting a divorce. What? As soon as Elder Tang heard this news, he froze. Although he knew that the Zhong family wasn't a good family, Tang Xian was the one that insisted on joining the Zhong family. After so many years of entanglement, nothing came of it. Yet, she suddenly calmly decided to get a divorce? This didn't seem like Tang Xian's style. The Zhong family is currently in danger, yet they keep asking me for money. I can't take it anymore, so I asked for a divorce. Elder Tang did not say a word as he turned around and entered the study room. Not long after, he gave Tongning a phone call and told her everything about Tang Xian. Xiaoning, grandfather feels that something isn't right. Tongning also knew that something wasn't right. Not only was it impossible for Tang Xian to get a divorce, even if she was brave and clear-headed, it wouldn't be easy for her to get rid of the Zhong family. At least, it shouldn't have been handled in such a simple manner. Grandfather, be careful, Tongning reminded. I know, don't worry. After hearing Elder Tang's promise, Tongning put down her phone in a daze. If she allowed Tang Xian to escape like this, then she wasn't the cautious Tongning that she knew. According to reports, the person in charge of Tang Core, Xia Yuling, has yet to receive any news. It seems, a storm of blood is about to descend upon Tang Core. In addition, Tongning's disaster film, WH, will be released in theaters on December 4th. Tang Core has built up over the years, yet they've been dealt a heavy blow because of a name list. How infuriating and laughable. What is the acting CEO doing? How could she allow something so important to be leaked? Although they would still find out during the press conference, the fact that she was a VIP in front of the cameras would only make those that weren't invited secretly compete in their hearts. The next time she was invited, she would definitely appear at the press conference. Or, she would get priority on the new perfume. She wouldn't end up like this, feeling like she was given a fake list of names. Where was Tang Core's rigor? Where was Tang Core's style? I don't want to hear about this. I want the Tang family to give me an explanation. Whether it's the chairman, the big miss, or the mysterious acting CEO, I want an answer. I've already contacted the big Mississippi. She should be arriving soon. As one of the shareholders, let's hear what she has to say first, Lin Xiaoyuan said in a deep tone as he crossed his arms. In reality, this was part of his plan. He wanted Tang Xian to step out and solve the problem so that she could rebuild her reputation in front of the shareholders. But, does the big miss have the right to speak? One of the board members questioned. At least she's a member of the Tang family, Lin Xiaoyuan laughed. Don't tell me you have a more suitable candidate in mind? No one said another word. A moment later, Tang Xian arrived at Tang Core's meeting room. As soon as her eyes met Lin Xiaoyuan's, she quickly looked away and pretended to be innocent. What's going on? Big miss, what is the chairman trying to do? Tang Core is currently in a precarious situation. Something big happens every few days. Is he trying to make life difficult for us shareholders? Grandfather told me to stay at home and rest, so I'm not sure, Tang Xian replied. Are you still a family? How could you not know anything? I'm finding it harder and harder to understand the chairman. The board members began to express their dissatisfaction. I only have one thing to say today. Either the chairman or the acting CEO steps in. Stop wasting everyone's time. I think the chairman is getting old. Lin Xiaoyuan's voice was particularly raspy and deep. If he can't make the right judgment anymore, I suggest he step down from his position. That's right, Director Lin. Are you brave enough to say something like this in front of the chairman? One of the board members deliberately questioned Lin Xiaoyuan with a mocking smile. Of course I'm brave enough, Lin Xiaoyuan replied calmly. The other party did not hesitate as he immediately gave Elder Tang a phone call and placed it in the middle of the conference table. Chairman Tang, we are currently having a board meeting, but on the other side of the phone, Elder Tang was fishing. What's the matter? You can speak to the acting CEO. I'm busy. Chairman Tang, Tang Core is in such a big mess, yet you're still in the mood to fish. What? You don't trust the person I'm looking for? She's on her way, and we'll meet with you in a moment. If you want to settle a score or something else, you can speak to her directly. As soon as Elder Tang finished speaking, a series of beeps sounded from the other side of the phone. Everyone's expression turned serious as they received a very important hint. The legendary acting CEO was actually on her way. In other words, they were about to find out who she was. Since Chairman Tang has said so, then let's wait a little longer. I want to see what this acting CEO has up her sleeves. Lin Xiaoyuan and Tang Xian looked at each other. All of a sudden, they did not expect the situation to develop in such a way. After all, their opponent was not going to wait for them to plot against them. Although, Lin Xiaoyuan's eyes were still filled with comfort. The more chaotic Tang Core was, the greater their chances were. Chapter 508. This was the first time Tongning had worn office wear. She wore a white sweater with a brown coat wrapped around her figure. Of course, it was necessary to cover up her pregnancy. Imo Ting had put in a lot of effort. In order to look more capable, Tongning wore pearl earrings and tied her long hair to the back of her head, adding a sense of coldness to her image. Are you sure you don't need me to accompany you? Imo Ting asked worriedly as he blocked Tongning's way. No need. Tongning nodded her head confidently. Don't worry, Secretary Qiao is here. I will keep an eye on you. Imo Ting gently stroked her cheek and whispered in her ear, Have I ever told you that you look good as a domineering CEO? It's not too late to tell me now. After speaking, Tongning placed a kiss on Imo Ting's cheek. Go on, have fun. Imo Ting defined Tongning's trip to Tang Core as a fun trip. She was going with the intention of teasing Tang Xian. So what if she revealed the VIP list? Did she think that was enough to threaten her? How naive. But it was time for her to witness Tang Xian's shocked expression. Inside Tang Core's meeting room, everyone was still waiting anxiously. Everyone sat in their seats with different expressions on their faces. It seemed every second that passed was wearing down their patience. Someone even looked at their watch and yelled, How much longer do we have to wait? It's already been an hour. Are they coming or not? Let's wait a little longer. At this time, Lin Xiaoyuan displayed an extraordinary level of patience and calmed the other shareholders down. Soon, the sound of knocking could be heard. Everyone turned to look at the door. A moment later, the door swung open and everyone looked at Tongning confusedly. Third Miss? What are you doing here? We are in the middle of a meeting. This is not an audition venue. Hurry and leave. A shareholder that had never accepted Tongning's identity mocked. I'm also a shareholder, right? Tongning asked. Third Miss, we are currently in the middle of a very important discussion. Could you excuse us for a moment? I'm also here for a meeting. Tongning walked into the meeting room with a smile on her face. Just as she was about to sit down in the chairman's seat, Tang Xian immediately stood up and said to her, Tongning, everyone is frowning right now. No one is joking with you. Since you are a part of the Tang family, you should know where you are. Get out of here. However, she had never felt embarrassed about being the daughter of a mistress. Hearing this, no one said a word. Tongning did not say a word either. She simply walked around the table and walked over to Tang Xian's seat. She then lifted her hand and threw a slap across her face. All they heard was a crisp slap. Everyone was shocked by Tongning's slap. Tang Xian looked at Tongning in disbelief, but Tongning did not say a word. She simply walked over to the chairman's seat and sat down. She then said to everyone, Let's start the meeting. I am the acting CEO that all of you have been longing to see, Tongning. Tongning replied to everyone coldly. Tongning, It was actually Tongning. As soon as this result was announced, everyone had a complicated expression on their faces. Some were happy, some were sad. Of course, Tongning already had a rough idea of what these people were thinking. Chairman, are you joking? How could you let an actress point her around? Tang Kor has been completely disgraced. Seeing the older generation of directors stand up, Tongning laughed and asked, "Do you think I've embarrassed you? I've caused the Oriental trend, appeared on the European and American stage, received a contribution award, and rejected Hollywood. Have I embarrassed your family?" Chairman Yao, conservative thinking is not good for business. From what I know, your home appliances company has just been taken off the market, right? Everyone was stunned as the older director's face turned red. What surprised everyone was that Tongning had actually changed her usual aloof image and displayed her resolute and tough side. Of course, this was something she learned from emoting at home. If the boss of a corporation couldn't intimidate others with his aura, then who would listen to him? I know you all want to cause trouble for me, but there's no rush. Let's start the meeting first. Why did you want to see me? Where? Don't you know that the VIP list for Tangkor's new product launch has been leaked? What VIP list? Tongning pretended not to understand. I know something like this has been leaked, but where did this list come from? Has it been approved by me? Everyone suddenly wondered what Tongning had up her sleeves. What do you mean? The new product launch is the most important day of the year for Tangkor. As for the VIP list, we are extremely cautious. How did a VIP list that none of you have seen get leaked? Has it been approved by the board of directors? Tongning explained with a smile. Seeing no one responded, Tongning's voice once again turned sharp and cold. I would like to ask everyone here, how much mess do you want me to make before you give up? What right does an actress like you have to order us around? I would also like to know what you are planning to do while my mother isn't around? Tongning asked in a loud voice. If you are so capable, then go ahead and save Tangkor's reputation. As long as you solve the problem of the VIP list being leaked, I will be convinced. That's right. The most important thing right now is to solve the problem of the list being leaked. Tang Xian looked at Tongning. She had obviously been slapped in the face, but she couldn't find a chance to retaliate. Tongning acted like she had swatted away an annoying fly, completely ignoring her. It turned out, grandfather had really handed Tongning all the power. You don't need to worry about this. Tonight, I will give everyone an explanation. I will also show you the difference between Tang Xian and I. Tongning said confidently, Fine, if you can't do it, then get out of Tangkor and never appear in front of us again. After speaking, the elderly director angrily stormed out of the room. Quite a few people followed suit. Of course, the meeting ended on a sour note. Afterwards, only Tang Xian and Tongning remained in the spacious room. Their eyes met. Tongning's gaze contained a depth that Tang Xian couldn't understand. What do you think? Are you surprised to see me? Tang Xian glared at Tongning as she clenched her fists. I can't help it. I've retreated from the industry and have a lot of free time, so I decided to help manage Tangkor. I'm sure this is what you want to see. Chapter 509. Tongning was hinting that Tang Xian had shot herself in the foot when she retreated from the entertainment industry. My existence must be making every moment unbearable for you, right? Tongning took a step towards Tang Xian. Her perfect figure created a sense of pressure as she leaned in and whispered in Tang Xian's ear, This is just the beginning. Once upon a time, when I couldn't be bothered to compete with you, you kept pushing me. I had no choice but to stop everything I was doing and play games with you, so I wouldn't let you down. After speaking, Tongning took a few steps back and admired the change in Tang Xian's expression. She then smiled beautifully. From the day that Tongning made her comeback, she had announced to the entire world that she would not offend those that didn't offend her. Since someone had offended her, even if that person had to hide at the ends of the earth, even if she had to chase them to the end of the world, she would still make them pay. Tang Xian glared at Tongning. But, in terms of presence, she had already lost to Tongning. Afterwards, Tongning left, leaving Tang Xian alone in the meeting room. She stared at the chairman's seat and trembled. Of course, since Tongning had already made an appearance, News quickly spread throughout Tangkor. Oh God, the acting CEO is actually Tongning. Doesn't that mean we'll get to see her more often? I wonder if we can get an autograph. I've always wanted to see what the successful Tongning in the entertainment industry would be like if she were to manage Tangkor. Oh God, Tongning is going to become a new generation of inspirational goddesses. If she can manage Tangkor in an orderly manner, is there anything in this world that she can't do? There's going to be a good show. Let's sit back and wait for Tongning to deal with the VIP list leak. The staff at Tangkor had already begun their internal discussions. But, unlike the stubborn higher-ups, the employees were filled with excitement and anticipation for Tongning to take on the role of acting CEO, especially since Tangkor was currently in troubled times. The leak of the VIP list had hurt many of Tangkor's loyal customers. But, when they thought about how Tongning always managed to turn the situation around, they couldn't wait to see how Tongning was going to turn this crisis into an opportunity. Luckily, Tang Xian didn't read the internal news of Tangkor. Otherwise, she would definitely be furious. Everyone had placed too much importance on this matter. If the matter blew up too much, it would be troublesome to deal with. But they had forgotten that the root of the matter was Tangkor's standards and the attitude that their clients needed. Since it was the standard, he would return to the bottom line. Seeing his wife working hard, Mo Ting smiled warmly. He understood his wife well. She never fought a battle she wasn't confident in. Her mind was filled with wisdom. It didn't take long before Tongning sorted out the sequence of events and approached Mo Ting with the information in her hands. What do you think of me doing this? Mo Ting turned around his office chair and received the documents from her hands. After looking through her entire plan, he suddenly laughed. It's a very complete plan. Ning, actually, you don't need to ask me about something like this. No, I must ask you. I know. As long as you nod your head, I will feel safe, Tongning replied. Mo Ting felt a great sense of satisfaction. He didn't know why, but whenever he faced Tongning, his heart would still burn with passion. That's because you're used to relying on me. You don't like my habit? Tongning raised her eyebrows. I like it so much that I can't help myself. He loved her so much that he couldn't help himself. Tongning had already become a hot topic because of the release of WH. Now, with her appointment as the acting CEO of Tangkor, she once again shocked the netizens. In fact, many people that didn't understand the business world or didn't like the business world immediately focused their attention on her. After all, not everyone could succeed in a different industry. Tongning already had the identity of a model and an actress, yet, without a word, she had become the CEO of Tangkor. A CEO? Does it mean that if I go to work at Tangkor, I'll be able to see Tongning? Wow, my Tang baby has retreated from the industry to become a female CEO. My Ning is amazing. Haha, I've long wanted to see my Ning's professional outfit. At the same time, the netizens were also concerned about whether or not they could successfully resolve the issue of the VIP list being leaked. After all, with Tongning's identity, her every move was bound to receive attention and any response she gave was bound to be extraordinary. Night slowly arrived. The sky above Beijing was cold and bleak. At this time, Tangkor finally made a move. Tongning had made her move. She wasn't going to hold a press conference, nor was she going to use some vague public relations document. Instead, she did something that no one would have expected. That was, she sent a letter of apology to the VIPs who had been exposed and sent them a gift. The main idea of the apology letter was that Tangkor did not have a VIP list and that it was a fake. She was sincerely apologizing to the 20 VIPs for being disturbed and hurt by this incident. In other words, there was no such thing as a VIP list. Tongning's method was to give these VIPs a way out. She was treating this as a beautiful misunderstanding. Not only did she save their pride, she also gained their understanding and stepped out to speak up for Tangkor. Tangkor has always been fair and would never make such an irresponsible mistake. So, everyone, please don't be used by someone with ulterior motives. I did not receive an invitation to the product launch. Another VIP that appeared on the list laughed. To be honest, all I can say is that Tangkor's response this time is extremely beautiful. The person in charge of Tangkor is a beautiful woman. She is so smart. How could she possibly leak the list? Everyone, please don't feel bad. I did not receive an invitation either. With a VIP on the list personally stepping out to explain, the people that weren't invited immediately felt a lot better. Ah, so it was all a misunderstanding. So, there was no such thing as a VIP list. This was faster and more effective than any PR statement and more comforting than any words. Like this, the situation began to turn. The angry VIPs did not dare to speak out again. If they did, they would appear to be looking for trouble and narrow-minded people. Since this was all a lie, then they should be showing their tolerance towards Tangkor. Like this, the leak of the VIP list was intercepted by Tongning just as the dam was about to burst. Chapter 5:10. Of course, Tangkor also released a PR statement. But it was a serious apology and apology for the leaked client list. They also promised to conduct a thorough investigation and protect the client's information. Tongning used a professional attitude to display the seriousness of Tangkor. Her actions once again won the admiration of the VIP clients. She used the method of pleasing 20 people in exchange for a turnaround for Tangkor. And she did it all in one night. So, at this moment, whether the VIP list existed or not no longer mattered. Because Tongning's flawless way of handling matters once again shocked everyone. In fact, she even made everyone sigh. Ah, so this was how things could be resolved. Fuck, my Ning's EQ is really amazing. When it comes to resolving a crisis, it's rare to see someone so capable. Haha, let's give Tongning a round of applause. No wonder the chairman of Tangkor kept insisting that Tongning step out of retirement. As expected, the moment she makes a move, the truth will be revealed. I have no other wish in life. I just want to have a brain as smart as Tongning's. I give full marks to Tongning's crisis management. The main thing is, Tongning's methods are too likable. At this moment, the internet was filled with praise for Tongning's crisis management. Of course, this included the staff at Tangkor. She handled it beautifully. The third Mrs. Slap has turned the big Mrs. years of hard work into zero. After all, a certain someone has been in Tangkor for so long, yet she hasn't done a single meaningful thing. Fast, accurate, and ruthless. She is indeed the third Miss. Tangkor now has hope. That's great. Tongning's crisis management not only gave Tang Xian a slap in the face, it also gave those that underestimated her a loud slap in the face. So what if they were actors? Apart from quarreling, can you handle things as well as actors? However, this was only the first step of Tongning's plan. Afterwards, all of Tangkor's VIP clients began to receive handwritten letters from staff. The letters were all soaked in the fragrance of the upcoming product. Not only did this make the VIP clients feel better, it also served as a warm-up for the upcoming product launch. Because of the fragrance on the letters, most people forgot about their previous anger and placed their attention on the upcoming product launch. This fragrance was so special, like this. In just 2 days, not only did Tongning successfully save Tangkor's reputation, she also increased her influence in Beijing and even the entire nation. This was the so-called crisis transformation. At the new meeting of the board of directors, the expressions of all the directors were unnatural. In other words, he was too ashamed to face Tongning. Of course, Tongning couldn't be bothered. I've already met your requirements. Is there anyone else that isn't satisfied with me being the acting CEO? The conference room was dead silent. Very well. I'll take it that you've admitted defeat. Now, let's settle the debt. You should have some understanding of it, right? I'm a person who likes to settle scores after the fall. Tongning scanned her eyes across the room and asked her first question. Who leaked the VIP list? Everyone was stunned. Could it be that this matter could be investigated? Don't look at me. This list does exist, but it hasn't been notified to the subordinate departments yet. How did this person have the ability to get his hands on this information? Tongning placed her elbows on the table and crossed her arms. With a calm smile, she continued, I'm sure this person is amongst you, right? Everyone suddenly felt insecure. They didn't know why, but Tongning was obviously younger than them, but she exuded an aura that only Elder Tang should have. The information has been leaked. We could have blocked the news immediately, but who was it that allowed this matter to escalate to such an unmanageable stage? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, as if they were suspicious of each other. Only those who were open and aboveboard were fearless. Okay, let's not talk about this matter for now. I know that all of you still feel that my identity is a disgrace to Tangkor and that Tang Xian should be the acting CEO. In that case, why don't we let Tang Xian take over the upcoming events and the upcoming product launch? What do you all think? At this moment, the meeting room fell into a strange silence. What? Now that the crisis has been resolved, shouldn't you all be happy? After all, I'm just an entertainer. Not only Tangkor, but the entire public now knew that Tongning had solved the problem as soon as she arrived. Even the collaboration in Switzerland was thanks to Tongning's hard work. How could they still have the face to say that Tongning was just an entertainer that slept with others? After all, I'm just a temporary replacement. You all can vote for whoever you like. After saying this, Tongning did not say another word. It seemed she wanted everyone's reaction. Third Miss Tang, you have a good way of handling things. However, as the board of directors, it is only right for us to question your abilities in order to protect our own interests. It is also your responsibility to solve the company's crisis. Lin Xiaoyuan maintained a calm demeanor from start to finish. Although the big miss isn't capable enough, she is still your sister. Slapping her in front of everyone doesn't seem appropriate for her. Tongning calmed down and sneered, Director Lin. It seems you really want to bring this matter to the surface. What do I have to be afraid of? Lin Xiaoyuan asked. Fine, I'll leave the rest to you. I've never cared about the position of CEO. After speaking, Tongning stood up. At this time, the other board members began to express their opinions. Third Miss Tang, since things have gotten to this point, Tangkor can't do without you. Tongning, don't be stubborn. This is related to everyone's interests. Hearing this, Tongning laughed. Just like you've said, this matter is related to your interests. But what does it have to do with me? I can choose or not to take this position. My actions aren't as natural as you think. Do you think I care about this little bit of power? If you don't give me the respect I deserve, why should I do everything for you? Do you think I have nothing better to do? Everyone, if you think that Tang Xian can bring benefits to you, then go ahead and look for her. I don't care about this position, but if you want me to stay on as a temporary replacement, then please don't tell me how I should treat Tang Xian. You're not me. Tang Xian didn't do what she did to me. Chapter 511. This time, Lin Xiaoyuan fell silent. Tongning wasn't a two-faced person. If she hated or disliked someone, she would directly express it. The two sisters had always been like fire and water, so Tongning didn't need to hide it. Tongning was obviously planning to kick Tang Xian out of Tangkor. In fact, according to her style of doing things, it was very likely that she would completely eliminate them. She would destroy all of Tang Xian's influence in Tangkor. The board of directors couldn't help but be impressed by Tongning's courage. After 2 consecutive victories, they had to acknowledge Tongning's capabilities. So, after the meeting ended, Tongning gave the order to fire Tang Xian. She didn't even keep her position as a secretary. Tang Xian stormed into the CEO's office, but Tongning didn't even let her see her back. You won't even let your own sister off. Aren't you afraid of retribution? In the end, Xiao Yuxing was so annoyed that he had no choice but to step out and reply. President Tang said that she has the final say here and that firing you is her right. Tongning, come out and explain yourself. Miss Tang, please go home and focus on your pregnancy. If anything happens to the child in your stomach, we won't be able to take responsibility. Xiao Yuxing stood in front of the office door. Tongning, don't think that you can kick me out of the agency like this. Inside the office, Tongning sat quietly on the sofa with her eyes closed. As for Tang Xian, the fire in her eyes had no intention of letting her off the hook. President Tang, I've already kicked her out. Clean up the people related to Tang Xian. Do what you need to do, Tongning said calmly with her eyes closed. Xiao Yuxing nodded his head and let out a sigh of relief. I hope Tangkor will have peace from now on. Peace? Hearing this word, Tongning stood up and smiled. Tang Xian still has a bargaining chip, the child in her stomach. By the way, did you really think that the leak of the VIP list was planned by Tang Xian on her own? President Tang, are you saying? Let's call it a day. Focus on preparing for the product launch. Tongning stopped halfway through her sentence. They were both smart people, so there were some things that didn't need to be too direct. Just like that, Tongning quickly took control of Tangkor. Because of these two beautiful victories, she moved from being on the front page of the entertainment newspaper to appearing on the business section. The only thing that worried Tongning was that it would become harder and harder to hide her pregnancy. After all, the baby in her belly was getting bigger and bigger. In an instant, everyone knew that Tang Xian had been kicked out of Tangkor. This was the second time Tang Xian had been kicked out. The first time was by Elder Tang, but this time, it was Tongning. Tang Xian's reputation had already spread far and wide. Chapter 512. Shares and Child were the only bargaining chips Tang Xian had left. She had been forced into a dead end by Tongning. Late at night, around the corner of the Tang family villa, Tang Xian boarded an inconspicuous black car and said to the people inside, "There are cameras everywhere. What if we get caught? How does Elder Tang treat you?" Lin Xiaoyuan asked as he took a puff of his cigarette. On the surface, he treats me well, but in reality, he's always biased towards Tongning. The unyielding Tang Xian suddenly broke down and burst into tears. "You've already reached this point. What's the point of crying?" Lin Xiaoyuan replied calmly. "I'm already at my wit's end." "How could you be at your wit's end? You still have shares and the child in your stomach. It's obvious that Elder Tang is quite fearful of the child in your stomach. What can I do? I'm currently tied down by Tongning and can't do anything." Lin Xiaoyuan suddenly turned his head and looked at Tang Xian. Through the thin lenses of his glasses, his eyes were dark like obsidian with a cold glint. "The biggest difference between you and Tongning is that Tongning likes to keep a low profile. She always observes her surroundings and grabs the right opportunity to succeed. Yet, you can't keep your cool at all." This was something that Tang Xian was well aware of. However, there were a lot of times that she didn't want to admit that. Over the years, she had tried her best to be better than Tongning, but she had never succeeded. At this moment, Lin Xiaoyuan suddenly calmed down. He then pulled out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. The red on the cigarette was eye-catching and strange in the dark night. "So, you have no other choice. Focus on your pregnancy and wait for the right opportunity. During this time, I will be responsible for training you. Tongning is constantly evolving. There's no reason for you to stay where you are and not improve. You will also be attending Tangkor's product launch, right? This time, don't let Tongning outshine you again." To reduce the chances of being exposed in front of the public, Tongning had no intention of attending the product launch. But, thinking about the restless Tang Xian, Tongning decided it was necessary for her to appear on stage. Of course, she had to do it without anyone knowing. Her patience was about to run out. This time, Tang Xian did not use the child as a bargaining chip. It was obvious she had not reached the end of her rope. However, for some reason, Tongning was suddenly reminded of something Imo Ting had previously said. Imo Ting had once said that he wanted to see Tang Xian and his child separated. At this moment, she actually wanted to see Tang Xian's expression. "Recently, I don't even need to make a phone call to know about you. Please, you're going to be famous throughout the 3 realms. It wasn't easy for Long Jie to make a trip to Hyatt Regency to see Tongning." Chapter 513. Tangkor's product launch was just around the corner, but the public had yet to receive confirmation that Tongning would be attending. After resolving the issue with the leaked VIP guest list, Tongning once again disappeared. Even as the acting CEO, she rarely made an appearance. Even the staff of Tangkor rarely had the chance to see her. 3 p.m. at the Crown Star Hotel. Where Tangkor was about to begin their product launch, guests continued to stream into the specially prepared waiting rooms. But Tongning was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, inside one of the waiting rooms, Tang Xian had already changed into a gown and was sitting in front of her makeup table. Beside her stood Lin Xiaoyuan and the makeup artist. Both of them looked at Tang Xian carefully. "Mr. Lin, you're ready." The makeup artist put down her tools and retreated behind Lin Xiaoyuan. Lin Xiaoyuan looked at Tang Xian calmly. The person in the mirror was no longer the beautiful rose she once was. Her makeup was elegant, and her expression was gentle. She looked like a completely different person from the usual Tang Xian. "Remember what I said? Smile more and don't talk too much." Lin Xiaoyuan was well aware of the process of the product launch. Of course, he also knew that Tongning had a unique design for the appearance of Tangkor's new perfume. So, he had someone tamper with that part of the event. Although Tongning did not make an appearance, it was because she wanted to be the finale. After all, she used to be a model. How could she miss out on an event like this? But Lin Xiaoyuan was wrong. The reason why Tongning did not make an appearance was because she never cared about gimmicks. She sat with the guests and entered the venue early. On top of that, she had to keep a low profile so she wouldn't attract any attention. Below the stage, Tongning and Mo Ting were already seated in a relatively secluded area. Mo Ting wore a hat to protect Tongning. From the way they were dressed, they looked like staff. "Are you really not going on stage?" Mo Ting whispered into his wife's ear. Tangkor's grand event was planned by Tongning. Although he was used to Tongning keeping a low profile, he still didn't want her credit to be taken away by others. "The baby is important," Tongning replied as she rubbed her stomach. "When have I ever cared about this little bit of vanity?" Mo Ting smiled gently without saying a word. Reality proved that the more capable a person was, the more they kept a low profile. In fact, Tongning was no longer lacking in praise and applause. As for the other members of the Tang family, ever since Tang Xian told Elder Tang that they were going to separate from the family, they suddenly became more well-behaved. They no longer caused a ruckus and their moods became calm. Elder Tang found it more and more difficult to understand Tang Xian's temper. Deep down, he had a feeling that Tang Xian only had so many tricks up her sleeves because there was someone giving her ideas behind the scenes. Previously, it was Mother Zhong, but now, who was it? Soon, celebrities from all walks of life entered the venue. There were also some celebrities that were invited. After walking the red carpet, they took their seats. Of course, the Crown Star Hotel was filled with fans from all over the country. Most of them were the little cuties from Tongning and Luoxing. Luoxing, twinkling like a star, radiating boundless light. "Luoxing, you're so handsome. We all support you and support the Tang family's perfume. The rest of the Tang family will be attending, but what about my Ning? It's such an important occasion. Don't tell me he won't show up." Outside, the fans were already in a heated discussion. As per Tongning's request, the hotel provided a place for the fans to avoid the cold. They couldn't let anyone catch a cold and tried their best to protect the fans from the cold. As a member of Tangkor, not only Tang Jingxian, even Tang Yichin put down her work and rushed over to attend the annual new product launch. So, below the VIP stage, the handsome men and beautiful women from the Tang family were already seated in a row. Even the recently kicked-out Tang Xian was dressed to the nines. However, the person in charge, Tongning, was nowhere to be seen. This surprised the guests. They originally thought they would be able to catch a glimpse of Tongning. Soon, on the grand and luxurious stage, the MC began to introduce the guests. Inside the packed hall, successful people from all walks of life were gathered. They were filled with anticipation and curiosity towards Tangkor's new product. "Why isn't Xiao Ning here?" While the MC was speaking, Tang Yichin turned and asked Tang Jingxian, "Isn't she going to attend such an important event?" "I'm not sure." Tang Jingxian shook his head. After all, it was impossible for him to guess what Tongning was thinking. Plus, Tang Xian was sitting beside them. Tang Jingshuan's gaze swept across Tang Xian, and he scoffed. Tang Yichin understood what Tang Jingxian was thinking, so she nudged him. "You should at least give grandfather some face. Don't cause trouble at an event like this." Tang Jingxian did not say a word and Tang Yichin calmed down. Meanwhile, Beside them, Tang Xian smiled like nothing had happened. She looked at the stage like an elegant socialite. Today is the day of Tangkor's annual new product launch. As a perfume family, Tangkor has been perfuming the city, the country, and even the world for many years. Before we unveil the new member of Tangkor's perfume family, let us first invite our chairman, Elder Tang, to give a speech. Dressed in a white suit, Elder Tang looked energetic and heroic as he walked onto the stage with the help of his walking stick. He then turned to the guests and said, "This will be my last time attending Tangkor's new product launch. The world has already fallen into the hands of the younger generation." The younger guests did not share Elder Tang's sentiments, so they whispered amongst themselves, "I only see Tang Xian. Is Tongning here because she's avoiding us?" To be honest, apart from her brain, Tang Xian is quite beautiful. Look at all the guests here. How many have her elegance? Of course, that's assuming she doesn't say a word. I bet you don't know about this? Tongning is her nemesis. Think about it. Tongning's legs are known as one of the top 10 most beautiful legs in the world. If Tongning appears today, Tang Xian will probably be forgotten in the corner. As Tang Xian listened to the discussions behind her, she gritted her teeth and endured the jealousy and anger in her stomach. Tongning is indeed outstanding. No matter what industry she's in, she's always able to perform so well. Keep it down. She's indeed better than the one in front. Behind her, the mockery and ridicule did not stop, but Tang Xian did not say a single word from start to finish. Why do you keep it down? Are you afraid that she'll hear you? Which part of my words isn't the truth? Enough. Tang Xian couldn't take it anymore as she stood up from her seat. However, her actions obviously disrupted the ongoing new product launch. Everyone, I have something to say. Chapter 514. Lin Xiaoyuan watched as Tang Xian stood up. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. When Tongning was slandered for killing Han Xiner, she was scolded by the entire nation. But what did she do? From beginning to end, he did not utter a single word. He was wrong. On the other hand, Tang Xian's tolerance level was far too low. There was no value in training her. Xiao Xian, if you have anything to say, wait until after the product launch. Let's go home and talk. Elder Tang understood Tang Xian's temper. At this moment, she had been provoked, so she didn't care about the bigger picture. I can't accept this. Ever since I was young, I, Tang Xian, have always been the most hardworking one. Because I know that I have the responsibility of the Tang family on my shoulders, I have always been cautious and never slacked off when it comes to anything related to Tangkor. For so many years, I have devoted myself to the Tang family. In order to pass on the Tang family's perfume spirit, I have done my best. However, I never expected, not too long ago, I was kicked out of Tangkor by the current acting CEO. That's fine. For the sake of the Tang family, I can endure it. But, grandfather, you should ask yourself honestly. Did you really think you were fair in the discussion just now? I've worked so hard, yet you've never once praised me. Yet, just because of a simple action from Tongning, you treat her as the hope of Tangkor. Don't you think you're being too biased? Elder Tang knew. These words had been bottled up in Tang Xian's heart for too long. The provocation he received just now was nothing more than a fuse. All the guests looked at the emotional Tang Xian, including Lin Xiaoyuan, who had his brows furrowed. Crazy, sick. Why don't you take a look at the situation before going crazy? It seemed. The string in Tang Xian's brain was stretched to its limit. Since you must know the reason today, Grandpa will also say a few words here. You've always been proud and arrogant, and you've always liked to compare yourself to Xiaoning. You think you are omnipotent. You think you are invincible. Actually, it was all because at that time, Xiaoning felt she owed you, so she hid herself. When you were young, you went to the same school. In order to satisfy your pride, Tongning always controlled her grades and never exceeded yours. Have you never wondered why she did this? In the end, Xiaoning had no choice but to leave home early to take up the job I was most opposed to. She became a model. Xiao Xian, don't tell me you still can't see your position clearly? But I've worked so hard for the Tang family for so many years. How many drops of perfume has Tongning created for us? How many times had he been to the lab? How many tests have you done? She doesn't even know about perfume. Tang Xian spoke emotionally, but at the same time, she felt wronged. This made people feel like the Tang family had wronged her, that they owed her, and that Tongning owed her. If someone else was causing a ruckus, the hotel security would have been easy to deal with. But this was a member of the Tang family, and she was pregnant. So, they didn't dare to take any risks. After all, everyone knew that Tang Xian wasn't easy to deal with. Tongning and Mo Ting were sitting not too far away as they witnessed the entire scene unfold. In the dark, Mo Ting held onto Tongning's hand tightly like he was trying to comfort her. He knew what kind of life Tongning had lived in the Tang family in the past, but he never expected that Tongning would give in to him. Over the years, how many days has Tongning stayed in the Tang family? Especially since she's already married. Grandfather, if you guys hadn't been so ruthless, I wouldn't have embarrassed you at a place like this. But I feel wronged and uncomfortable. A perfectly normal product launch had suddenly turned into a family war. Tang Xian also made her stance clear. If Elder Tang didn't give her an explanation today, everyone would be embarrassed as well. Perhaps Tang Xian felt that there was nothing she couldn't do. I don't understand. I don't understand. Originally, the host of the product launch was about to step forward to mediate the situation. But at this time, a powerful voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. What don't you understand? Everyone looked for the source of the voice. In the end, they spotted Tongning standing up from amongst the guests. After removing her hat and jacket, Tongning was revealed wearing a long, fluffy dress. As usual, it covered her stomach without leaving a trace. Step by step, she walked to the front of the stage from the guest seats. I never expected Tongning to be here. It seems Tongning originally didn't plan to make an appearance. I guess she couldn't stand it any longer. What's there for Tang Xian to be upset about? Look at Tongning's aura. She's been left in the dust. Because of Tongning's appearance, the venue became noisy. After all, everyone was talking about her. A moment later, Tongning made a shushing gesture, and the entire venue fell silent. Everyone looked at Tongning seriously, except the crying Tang Xian. You've always been like a cowardly mouse, hiding in the shadows and waiting for an opportunity to steal everything that belongs to me. Do you really not know why you were kicked out of Tangkor? Tongning asked straightforwardly. She was not in the mood to argue with Tang Xian. What other reason could there be? Because you can do whatever you want. Tongning smiled calmly and asked Tang Xian in a cold tone, Can I ask you a few questions? If you can answer me, I will give you the position of CEO of Tangkor. You said I don't understand perfume. In that case, who was the creator of your winning perfume in Switzerland, Night Spirit? Tang Xian froze as a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. At the same time, Elder Tang was also stunned. He never imagined that the perfume that made Tang Xian famous all those years ago wasn't the creator of her own creation. You took the recipe from my notebook. If it's been a long time and you can't remember, then let's talk about something else. In that case, let's talk about something else. Before I left the Tang family, I discovered that there was a problem with the stability of that year's new product. But in the end, it was all thanks to you. You even became famous in Tangkor. Don't tell me you've forgotten about this? One by one, Tongning asked him about the past. I also discovered the problem. What makes you think it was all thanks to you? You still refuse to admit defeat? Fine. I admit I don't understand perfume. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about something else. How could she not understand? Everyone was speechless. Chapter 5:15. While grandfather was in charge, Tangkor continued to grow steadily. Under grandfather's protection, you were able to climb to the top. But all these years, you say you've done your best for Tangkor. But what have you actually done for the company? Can you give me an example? On the contrary, during your time as CEO, Tang Kor's shares continued to fall and scandals broke out. It was my mother, Xia Yuling, who once again brought Tang Kor back on track. Hard work doesn't equate to merit. Even the cleaning auntie has done her best every day. Shouldn't Tang Kor also do the same for their CEO? To put it simply, you are useless. Tang Ning pointed out Tang Xian's problem. I've never studied management and came from a modeling background, yet grandfather had high hopes for a layman like me. Think about what you've done over the years. You are not worthy of the trust of the elders. Layman. The guests were once again speechless. If Tang Ning was considered a layman, then there weren't many people in the world that were truly capable. How can you deny that to me? Tang Xian was unconvinced, but she couldn't find a single example to refute Tang Ning. After all, even she couldn't remember what she had done for Tang Kor over the years. You relied on grandfather's protection to survive, while I relied on my own abilities to resolve the crisis at Tang Kor. No matter how you look at it, this position should never have been yours. You're lying. Tang Xian, even you are doubting yourself. Tang Ning laughed. Tang Kor has been through many ups and downs over the years and has always maintained a responsible attitude towards the company and its consumers. When it comes to things that aren't appropriate, we need to stop them as soon as possible. Grandfather has always maintained his original intentions. That's why, year after year, we have held our product launch. Tang Xian, it's important to know your place. Let's deal with our private matters in private. But today is a big day for Tang Kor. I'm sure the guests are more willing to see our new perfume than you. Everyone burst into laughter. In just a few moments, Tang Ning had moved on to the main topic of the day. As a result, Tang Ning naturally became the person to save the day. Mo Ting also asked Tang Jingxian to stand up and escort Tang Ning out of the guest area. Not long after, the atmosphere in the press conference returned to normal. I've made a fool of myself in front of everyone. At this moment, Tang Ning looked at everyone and gave a sincere bow. Compared to the aggressive Tang Ning from before, she was like a completely different person. She knew her limits and knew when to advance and when to retreat. Her actions tonight were highly praised by the guests. Previously, there were still people that suspected Tang Ning was relying on Mo Ting to deal with the crisis. But, after this incident, they were completely convinced by Tang Ning's high EQ. She actually managed to turn a war of words into an opening to lure out the perfume. Not only did she suppress Tang Xian fair and square, but she also promoted Tang Kor's corporate ethos, being responsible to everyone. As everyone can see, Tang Kor's perfume was only released to everyone after overcoming a lot of difficulties. From beginning to end, we have maintained a strict attitude to deliver the best fragrance to everyone. Even if there is a mistake, it will be corrected in time. Now, let's welcome the newest member of Tang Kor. Tang Ning faced the guests in her most elegant manner. It was like, at this moment, she wasn't a model nor an actress. She was simply the capable person in charge of Tang Kor. She was the Tang Ning that took everything seriously. On and off stage, Elder Tang and Tang Yichin let out a sigh of relief. They never expected that the press conference would go on as normal. But Tang Ning did it. She once again saved Tang Kor. Meanwhile, Tang Xian, who was being dragged away by Tang Jingxian, struggled to break free from his grip. But, to no avail. Brother Four, let go of me. If I let you go, would I embarrass Tang Kor again? Tang Jingxian asked. I'm sure you know deep down that Sister 3 has already gone easy on you today. If I were to reveal all the dirty things you've done, do you think you would still have a place in Beijing? Tang Xian lifted her head and looked at Tang Jingxian as she sneered. I'm your real sister, but how have you treated me? Have you finally remembered that you are my real sister? Tang Jingxian replied coldly. Since we were young, when have you ever fulfilled your responsibilities as an older sister? Whether it's when we were young or now, whenever I'm in trouble, the person that stands in front of me is always Sister 3, not you. What right do you have to ask me to be honest with you? Tang Xian was left speechless. Don't you know how much of a failure you are as a person? Tang Kor, don't even think about it. Protect the child in your stomach and grandfather will give you a place to hide from the wind and rain. Otherwise, who do you think you are? After speaking, Tang Jingxian let go of Tang Xian's wrist and placed his right hand back into his pocket. He then turned and left the quiet corridor, leaving Tang Xian all alone in a daze as she stared at the long red carpet. At this moment, Tang Xian didn't know what to feel. She simply felt her throat burn. Was she destined to be a failure? She still had the blood of the Tang family flowing through her veins. It wasn't like she had nothing. She couldn't accept what Tongning had said that night because she was the big miss of the Tang family. No one could deny the hard work that she had put in, not even Tongning. Like this, Tangcor's product launch proceeded smoothly. Elder Tang had said that no matter how many mistakes she had made, she was still the eldest miss of the Tang family and this was still her home. In reality, he just wanted her to stop acting recklessly in case she hurt the child in her stomach. That night, it snowed lightly in Beijing. Elder Tang informed the housekeeper to prepare a sumptuous dinner because Tongning was planning to host a banquet. It had been a long time since Tongning had returned to the Tang family home. So, Elder Tang was naturally filled with joy as he prepared for her return. But, while the entire family was immersed in joy, Tang Xian was the only one who felt like she was trapped in a cage of suffering. Soon, Tongning's invited guests began to arrive at the Tang family home. Originally, the shareholders thought the Tang family was treating them to a New Year's dinner early. But, as the elders gathered around the dining table, they looked at each other and felt something wasn't quite right. Chairman, the third miss is treating us to dinner. Why isn't she here yet? Elder Tang smiled as he touched his walking stick. She's on her way. The weather is cold and the roads are slippery, so I told her to be careful. Tang Yichin and Tang Jingxian sat together and chatted. Meanwhile, Tang Xian sat in a chair like she was isolated from the world. She held her stomach out and looked down at her bulging stomach. At this time, the housekeeper approached Elder Tang and said in a low voice, "Chairman, the third miss and son-in-law are back." A moment later, everyone looked towards the door and saw Mo Ting walking into the living room with his arm around Tongning's waist. The couple emitted a powerful aura of nobility, like a dragon and phoenix amongst men. "Sorry for making everyone wait. Quick, take a seat," Elder Tang said as he pointed to the two empty seats beside him. Tongning smiled as Mo Ting's eyes carried a deeper meaning. Of course, he was still here to act as Tongning's background. But his background was a little too eye-catching to be ignored. "Today, I invited everyone to dinner to apologize for my disrespect a few days ago," Tongning said as she picked up a cup of tea. Tongning was the first to pick up a cup of tea and said to the elders, "I'll use tea in place of wine to apologize to you all. Child, you're definitely made for business. You've never learned management, yet you know the art of being a ruler and how to use both kindness and power," one of the shareholders praised. Although the other shareholders weren't convinced, they couldn't express it in a situation like this. So, they simply smiled. "Uncle, you're flattering me. When it comes to management, I'm still inexperienced. However, apart from apologizing to everyone, I have another matter that I want to deal with in front of everyone. If the third miss has something to say, feel free to say it." Hearing this, Tongning suddenly lifted her head and looked at Tang Xian. Tang Xian couldn't help but laugh. "What did I do to upset you this time? Do you want to deal with me?" "Tongning, I can't believe you won't even let a street rat off the hook." To emphasize how pitiful she was, Tang Xian even mimicked a rat and squeaked a few times. "Speak. What is it this time?" "I heard news about my mother," Tongning replied calmly. Tang Xian's expression immediately changed. "Although we haven't found her yet." "Big Miss Tang Xian, I think it's better for you to explain the situation." "What do you mean by that, third miss?" One of the shareholders was confused. "What does President Xia's disappearance have to do with the big miss?" Tang Xian's facial muscles stiffened, but she refused to admit defeat. "Tongning, I may have failed, but don't try to pin everything on me. Xia Yuling's disappearance was her misfortune. What has it got to do with me?" "I know you won't admit it," Tongning revealed a mocking smile. "I'm also aware that everyone here has caused a lot of trouble and obstacles for my mother. That's why I've invited everyone here today. If there's something you want to say, then say it. As soon as Tang Ning finished speaking, everyone understood that this wasn't a dinner, it was a trap. Tang Ning's motive was simple. She wanted to get revenge. Tang Xian, you need to think this through. If I am the one to reveal this incident, there is a chance that your child will be born in prison. Chapter 517. Tang Xian was forced into a corner as she slammed her hands on the table and stood up. Don't go too far. I already have nothing. What more do you want? I don't want anything. I simply want you to tell me the truth. Tang Ning remained calm. Why is it so difficult to get the truth out of your mouth? I don't know. Tang Xian replied calmly without considering the consequences. Tang Xian denied without considering the consequences. At this time, some of the shareholders couldn't sit still anymore as they started to criticize Tang Xian. Third Miss, I know you are currently in a position of power, but you shouldn't be so ruthless towards a pregnant woman. I'm sure no matter how evil she is, she wouldn't have the guts to take someone's life. That's right. I want to be ruthless towards her, Tang Ning admitted. This has nothing to do with whether she is pregnant or not. From what I know, she doesn't even count as a person. The disgust in Tang Ning's eyes was real. Her hatred towards Tang Xian was not hidden at all. Fine, if you admit it, I won't be used to it. After speaking, Tang Ning clapped her hands as a signal. A moment later, Secretary Gao walked shakily into the living room and stood in front of everyone. Secretary Gao, you speak. Seeing that the truth was about to be revealed, Tang Xian immediately yelled at Secretary Gao, if you dare to say anything, I will get someone to cut out your tongue. Hearing these words, everyone was shocked, because her actions made it seem like she was trying to cover something up. Above all, Secretary Gao wasn't someone that couldn't understand the situation. Now that Tang Ning was in control of her fate, she had to listen to her orders. Actually, President Xia wasn't kidnapped by kidnappers. He was taken away by the Big Mississippi. As for whether he's dead or alive, I'm not sure. The Big Miss wanted the position of CEO and thought that by getting rid of President Xia, she would be able to get what she wanted. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? You're lying. Tang Xian yelled. You received benefits from Tang Ning. Big Miss, stop struggling. I have a lot of evidence in my hands. You won't be able to escape. Tang Xian's eyes grew wide. Her blood-red eyes could not hide her fear and excitement. I didn't. This slut framed me. However, at this moment, no one believed Tang Xian's words. Tang Yichen hated family fights, so she stood up and left. Meanwhile, Tang Jingxian moved to sit next to her, afraid that she would do something extreme again. After all, it wasn't like she hadn't done it before. Tang Ning, are you going to force me to my death? Didn't I tell you? What happened before was just the beginning. This isn't even 1,000th of what you did to me. She then pulled out Secretary Gao's phone. On this phone, there are records of all your phone calls with Secretary Gao, as well as the entire kidnapping incident. There are also a few new contacts involved. Do you want me to release them to the police? Tang Xian wanted to refute, but the words stuck in her throat and nothing came out. Eldest Miss, just admit defeat, or we'll all go to jail. President Xia is no longer here. This is murder. Think carefully. Tang Xian did not say a word. She simply clenched her fists. Tang Ning had no intention of waiting any longer, so she pulled out her phone and called the police. Secretary Gao was so scared that her hands and feet trembled. All she could do was beg Tang Xian, Big Miss, Big Mississippi, I beg. At first, Tang Xian did not move. But, just as the phone was about to connect, Tang Xian finally said in a raspy voice, Speak. What do you want in exchange? Tang Ning hung up the phone and handed it to Mo Ting. Afterwards, she looked into Tang Xian's eyes and simply said, Hand over your shares of Tang Core. Ha ha. Tang Xian suddenly burst into laughter. Tang Ning, you are indeed ruthless. Shares of Tang Core in exchange for the rest of your freedom. I think it's a good deal. Tang Ning did not back down as her eyes remained calm. Okay. Tang Xian nodded her head. Okay. I'll fulfill your wish. Don't you want shares of Tang Core? Don't you want to strip me clean? I'll fulfill your wish. Words are no proof. I've brought a share transfer agreement with me. Sign it. These words were squeezed out of Tong Ning's mouth without any emotion. In fact, she felt like she was talking to a stranger. After seeing Tang Xian try to hurt her baby and mother, Tong Ning had already lost all sympathy and compassion for her. Tang Xian had no choice but to sign the agreement. This time, apart from her title as the big miss of the Tang family, she had nothing left. Xiao Xian, this is for your own good. From now on, you should stay at home and focus on your pregnancy. Take good care of your child, Elder Tang said at the right time. Of course, his tone was a lot gentler than Tong Ning's. You don't need to pretend, Tang Xian said as she lifted her head. Even at this point, she could not let go of her pride. But Tong Ning, so what if you win? Your mother is still not around, haha. Who told you my mother is no longer around? Tong Ning was originally drinking the soup that Mo Ting had prepared for her. But, as soon as she heard Tang Xian's words, she put down her bowl and looked at Tang Xian coldly. When did I say something like that? Everyone had a serious expression on their faces, especially the shareholders that had been targeting Xia Yuling on a daily basis. Because, at this moment, they understood that Tong Ning would not only show mercy but also make an example out of them. Over the years, my mother has suffered a lot at the hands of the Tang family. She doesn't actually care about the position of CEO of Tang Core. She did it all for my sake. So, when my mother is in trouble as her daughter, I naturally have to bear the blame. Over the years that I've been in the entertainment industry, I've experienced countless difficult situations. In the end, I've come up with a simple rule of thumb. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If anyone thinks that we are easy to bully, then feel free to come at us. I, Tong Ning, have made it clear today. Next time, I will not be lenient. Today, Tang Xian can be crippled. Tomorrow, she can be someone else. If there's money, then let's work together. If there's no money, then let's withdraw our investments. It's simple. Don't try to do anything behind the scenes. I hate it. Lastly, Tang Xian, I may have to disappoint you again, because, after speaking, Tong Ning turned her head and gestured for everyone to look upstairs. Unbeknownst to them, an elegant middle-aged woman was standing on the steps. She had changed into a comfortable and elegant set of home clothes. Xia Yuling. How is this possible? Tang Xian watched as Xia Yuling approached her step by step. All the hair on her body stood on end. Chapter 5:18. Don't come any closer. Tang Xian took a few steps back as her lips trembled. For a moment, she even thought she was hallucinating. How could Xia Yuling be fine? Father, I'm home. Xia Yuling walked over to Elder Tang's side and wrapped her arms around Tong Ning. I was kidnapped in Switzerland. Unfortunately, I have a good son-in-law. He descended from the sky and rescued me. That's why I'm safe and sound. Everyone at the table remained silent as they watched the show unfold. After Xia Yuling let go of Tong Ning, she walked over to Tang Xian's side and suddenly threw a slap across her face. All these years, I've treated you well, yet you have the heart of a wolf and the lungs of a dog. You repaid my kindness with ingratitude. Tang Xian, if it wasn't for the child in your stomach, I wouldn't have simply given you a slap. Tang Xian lost her balance and fell to the ground. Her eyes were wide open and unfocused. She finally understood. From the moment Xia Yuling went to Switzerland to the moment she appeared, they had taken advantage of the situation to put on an act. Their motive was to make her lose everything. How dare you lie to me? At this point, her shares had already been transferred. No matter what she did, it was already too late. So, Elder Tang turned to the housekeeper and said, "Take the big miss back to her room and keep an eye on her. Don't let her do anything stupid." Grandfather, you knew this too, didn't you? Tang Xian stood up in anger and glared at Elder Tang. So, you colluded with them to lie to me and your granddaughter. Yet, even now, you refuse to admit your mistakes. Elder Tang said as he stomped his walking stick on the ground. Housekeeper, take her in. Grandfather, I never thought even you would lie to me. Even you lied to me. This was something Tang Xian never expected. At least, the only reason she had the confidence to be so arrogant and confident was because of Elder Tang's love. But the only person she could rely on was not someone she could rely on. It didn't take long before Tang Xian was escorted out of the dining hall. But, in front of the sumptuous feast, only Tang Xian dared to pick up her chopsticks. Perhaps these shareholders would remember what happened today at the Tang family home for the rest of their lives. Although she had seen her fair share of ups and downs, she still felt a deep sense of fear towards Tongning's schemes, especially when she had the calm and collected Mo Ting behind her. Soon, the shareholders left the Tang family one after another, saying that they were not feeling well. Since Tongning had already achieved her goal, she did not pursue the matter any further. She generously allowed them to leave. A moment later, the only people left in the living room were the Tang family. A bunch of ants. Elder Tang couldn't help but sigh. He believed that after this incident, Tang Core would be able to enjoy a long period of peace. He clearly remembered who he hugged and who he slept with the night before. 3 a.m. the next day, as expected, Song Yinshu woke Tang Jingxian up as if nothing had happened. Hurry and wash up. We need to leave at 4 a.m. Yinshu, don't say anything. I just rushed over from home. I'm still tired. Tang Jingxian was a little surprised. He didn't understand what Song Yinshu meant. She had never left, so how could she have rushed over from home? Last night, you drank too much last night, so I took you home. Don't worry, the media didn't take any photos, Song Yinshu explained casually. Then, I went home. After speaking, Song Yinshu handed Tang Jingxian the clothes she had prepared for him. Stop wasting time. We are in a hurry. Tang Jingxuan's expression did not look too good. He couldn't understand why Song Yinshu refused to admit that they had slept together the night before. Did she simply think that last night was an accident? Although, it was indeed an accident, but because, even if Tongning lost in the end, she would not have any regrets. Late at night, Mo Ting returned home. Seeing the yellow lights in the living room, his heart couldn't help but feel warm. It was as if no matter how chaotic and complicated the outside world was, as long as he returned home, he would be able to obtain the peace he wanted. As he pushed open the door and entered the bedroom, Tongning was in the shower. Amidst the smoke, he could only vaguely make out her silhouette. Mo Ting looked at his beloved wife and couldn't help but wrap his arms around her from behind. He then placed his hand on her protruding stomach and used his heart to feel the little thing's vitality. Not too long from now, I'm sure we won't be able to keep the baby a secret. We need to find a suitable time to announce it. I'll listen to you. Tongning couldn't help but lean back. The fire in her heart was still burning. It was the utmost respect she had for a man. In that case, if the baby's father wants to say hello to the baby, what should we do? Mo Ting whispered beside Tongning's ear. It was a hint to her that he wanted her to make love. Tongning turned around and hid in Mo Ting's embrace. Her voice was muffled. I'll promise you on behalf of the baby. After being married for so long, how could Tongning not have desires for Mo Ting? After receiving her answer, Mo Ting carried Tongning out of the bathroom and gently placed her on the bed. He then used a clean towel to wipe away the water droplets on her body. His actions were ridiculously gentle. Tongning took the opportunity to hook her arms around Mo Ting's neck and lean into his chest. I'm cold. Mo Ting leaned down and kissed Tongning on the lips with a fragrant scent. Those that once said Tongning couldn't have children had no idea that she was already 4 months pregnant. So, who knew how many eyeballs would pop out of their sockets this time? As for those that still looked up to the Mo family and hoped that Tongning would be abandoned by the Mo family, they would no longer be able to get what they wanted. This time, the Fei Tian Awards may not go to you. Are you afraid? After the pleasure, Mo Ting hugged Tongning and calmed himself down. He kept thinking about the promise he made to her. He once promised that he would give her the best. It's not something you can control, Tongning replied as she leaned into Ting's embrace. Actually, I knew it a long time ago. I could guess it just by looking at the movie that was released this time. Plus, the actresses that participated in the awards are all very talented. If I don't win the newcomer award, it doesn't matter. I will simply feel regretful, just like when she was only one step away from becoming an international supermodel. Even though her influence had already far surpassed that, she still did not win the title. Ting subconsciously tightened his grip around Tongning's arm. I won't let you have any regrets. Tongning trusted that Ting wouldn't act recklessly. So, she simply smiled and fell asleep in his arms. Was about to be released. Although she had already announced that she was retreating from the industry, it was still her blood and sweat. Just like stupid, how could she not care about her own child? Everyone would like it, right? Most importantly, this time, Nzaheo's future was at stake. The nervousness in her heart naturally increased by a few notches. After returning home from the event, Tang Jingxian secretly observed Song Yenshu. Actually, it wasn't hard to notice the marks left on her body from the night before. But the more she looked like this, the more upset Tang Jingxian felt. What was Song Yenshu thinking? Did she simply treat him as a one-night stand? Tang Jingxian couldn't accept this outcome. So, he gathered his courage and decided to ask her about it. But, just as he stepped out of the bedroom, he heard Song Yenshu talking on the phone in the living room. He is different from you. If you want to deal with him in the dark, don't blame me for being rude. Because of the incident with Xiaojingyi, Tang Jingxian was already traumatized. So, he didn't like to keep his doubts to himself. Yenshu, talk to me. Song Yenshu froze for a moment as she covered her phone and nodded her head. Give me 2 minutes. Tang Jingxian did not force her. He directly sat down on the sofa in the living room. There were some things that he needed to clarify. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.